when you look at the Lord long enough, you realize that it's not your strength that does anything. It's the partnership. He loves partnering with us. And we come back to the simplicity of who Jesus is and the simplicity of the gospel, and we can like lock into a melody and sing it over and over, and like, oh, the repetition builds the anticipation of truth. This is true. Like, the Lord changes everything. He is the one that sets us free. Like, it is the gospel message.
Hi, Melissa.
Hey.
It's good to be with you today.
Same.
And I feel really excited to talk to you about your song, Beautiful Jesus. The most recent video that came out on the Cageless Birds YouTube channel is a version of the song, Beautiful Jesus. There's a lot of beautiful moments in the video.
Yeah.
And the whole video is obviously filmed at the school 18-inch Journey.
Yeah.
I want to talk about that today. But even before we get into any of that, I wanted to ask you some questions about the song itself and just some of the story behind it. And I think my first question would be, how did you write the song Beautiful Jesus? And what was that process like?
Yeah. It's a pretty old song.
Really?
Yeah. I wrote it in my 20s, finished it in my 30s and recorded it. And then I'm still singing it. I'm in my mid-40s.
Come on.
So I think the song is just really, really special to me. To even release a version of it now feels like such a gift, because it is one of those songs in my archives that with every season that I live life, it feels like it's growing in truth, and that I'm understanding what I was reaching for in my 20s, and that it just gets truer and truer and truer. And I think that's it is a rare thing to have a song that grows with you.
Yeah.
You know, and to feel like, oh, what I was reaching for, what I was trying to say to myself and to the Lord keeps getting more authentic and more true to my journey. And so I started writing in my 20s, like when I was coming out of just so much suffering and sickness physically, and really contemplating like my friendship with the Lord. And when I give my testimony, I talk about that season of my 20s. I often talk about like that my early 20s were so much about the heart of the Father.
Yeah.
And then my late 20s were so much about my friendship with the Holy Spirit. And then into my 30s was really just like Jesus. It was just like the person of Jesus. The friend, the brother, the shepherd, the healer. As I really started coming out of, because I started a medicine in 2007 for my bone disease. And so after the years after that, I started playing a lot more music because I had feeling back in my hands, and I could play the guitar. I could kind of tinker on the piano. I'm not a very good musician by any stretch, but I know enough how to write and play. And that was really one of like the original melodies that I just very simply kind of fell into.
You found that piano part.
Yeah, I mean, Molly made it awesome.
Wow.
Let's be real. But just those little moments that I was starting to have with the Lord that were really helping me process a lot. Like there was just so much that happened in my 20s. I got married when I was 20 years old. You know, a year later got pregnant. A year later had Cadence. You know, a couple years later had Haven. And the whole time I was just so sick. So I think coming out of that season, being in my young 20s, full-time ministry, all this stuff, and just going into like, what does it mean to receive the fullness of the person of Jesus? Like, what does that actually mean? And I think for me, when I'm thinking about just the content of this song, like it was so much about just the covering of the Lord, like what I experienced and the depth of my connection with him.
Yeah.
There's been some, controversy between me and Jonathan over the first word of Beautiful Jesus when it says, "Hey, Jesus, won't you come?" And even when we recorded it in 2014, 15, there was talk over like, should we change the "Hey, Jesus" at the beginning?
I love that.
But what it really was about was like, is it too casual? I guess was the question. Is it reverent enough? And I really thought about it because
Yeah.
I really obviously respect Jonathan's opinion and his thoughts, and I really just sat with it. Like, what is even that? Is it that meaningful to me? And
Wow.
and the more I thought about it, and I'm like, what in the origin of this song, just like the presence of the Lord for me it became very casual.
Yeah.
And that's what I needed. Like, I needed to feel like I could just like, "Hey, Jesus."
Just immediate access.
Yes. Like,
Yeah.
we were just like, there was like the days that I felt really good and I was full of a lot of energy and joy, and the days that I was really tired and I hadn't slept or I was in a lot of pain. And just like, I think in my mind, I think about all the different iterations of "Hey." Like, like if I walked to you, like, and I'm in a hard place, I'm gonna be like, "Hey, Chris."
Yeah. Yeah.
And so I think for me, like, even that, the beginning
Yeah.
of it, like, "Hey, Jesus," it does symbolize like where me and him got to and where we're
Closeness.
still getting to,
Yeah.
and we still laugh about, should we have taken the "Hey" out of "Hey, Jesus, won't you come?" But I just love it because I'm like, it reminds me of, honestly, the fragility
Wow.
of my late 20s and the fragility of my 30s, and like learning how to stay with Jesus
Yeah. Wow.
and learning how to like, that first line, "Hey, Jesus, won't you come dress me in your thoughts?" that was like, that was my prayer. That was my
Yeah.
daily prayer. Like, clothe me in what you think about me.
Yeah.
Clothe me in your thoughts. Clothe me in identity, because it was just such a learning time for me coming out of so much suffering. And it was really beautiful. But even the beautiful Jesus part, when I was really, really sick and I was covered in psoriasis and I was really young and it was just really intense. When I would journal the voice of the Lord, he would always call me my beautiful Melissa.
Wow.
And I knew in that season that he was just moving against what was happening externally to me.
Wow.
Because I was just covered. 80% of my body was covered. And he was just every time like, "My beautiful Melissa, like, beautiful Melissa." Like, it was just like over and over and over and over. And it felt so wonderful to write a song like back, like, "Beautiful Jesus."
Yeah.
Like, my glorious friend, the one who never goes weary and stays to the end. And I think even I can think back on those years and then the like succession of all the years of singing it.
Yeah.
And how like it just gets so much richer. I love that about walking with the Lord. Like, it is like something aging. Wow. And the longer we stay with him, I saw a friend last night and that I hadn't seen in a really long time. He's like, "How are you?" And I just like, I am still with Jesus. And
Yeah.
it just felt like that's the truest thing I could say right now. I still love Jesus.
Yeah.
He's still changing my life.
Come on.
It's like he is the one that stays when everyone else leaves, when everyone else runs out of energy,
Yeah.
runs out of capacity. Like, he's the one that's just right
In the
there.
midst of the weariness.
Yes,
Yeah.
till
Of
the
life.
very, very end.
Yeah.
So, there's like, again, I wrote it over quite a period of time, and then Molly helped me land it, and she just plays the piano so beautifully. Yeah. But to go all the way to 2023, just last fall, and to just sing it again in my mid-40s, 16 years into our discipleship school, I was like, oh man, I love this song. Every time I sing it, I am just reminded of how much I love it. And and how much authority I feel when I sing it, because I'm still walking the narrow road with Jesus.
Yeah. Wow. And even the decades I'm hearing.
Decades.
In the process of finding that song and it becoming such an anthem of your life.
Yeah.
It's really powerful.
Yeah.
The moment that from 2023 that the video kind of drops into, and I love that about the song too. The just the way you drop into "Hey Jesus."
Yeah.
It's like an immediate like, okay, we're all here.
Yeah.
The video, if anybody hasn't seen it, the first part of the video is maybe like 7 minutes of the song and just around the song. And then it goes into just some really beautiful things instrumentally that are happening live in the room.
Yeah.
And then there's this whole other section of the song
Yeah.
where you're singing out about how Jesus changes everything.
Yeah.
I want to know what you love about where those moments when the written song ends and you step into the spontaneous.
Yeah.
Because even for anyone watching the video, there's such a place of patience that you can feel in just sitting in that instrumentation that's happening. And then Molly's on the piano. You hear like the melody is just kind of patiently going somewhere, but there's a lot of space.
Yeah.
What do you love about those moments?
I think I love a lot of things about those moments. I think me and Jonathan have had the privilege of playing with the same band for a really long time.
Yeah.
So I think that those in-between moments, they reflect our friendships. They reflect a willingness to wait on the Lord.
Yeah.
They reflect a trust that we all know the Lord is going to open another door because he loves being with his kids. Like, I think there's a confidence that we have practiced over many, many years. Like, it's not just because they're amazing musicians. It's because, we do life together every day, and we've played together a really, really long time. And so there's just like, let's just wait here. Like, something will come because the Lord loves these moments with us, like these patient, waiting, trust-filled moments.
Yeah.
And I love practicing patience in worship. I think that is something that me and Jonathan practice a lot. I think our whole crew does. I think it's worship can feel oftentimes like we have to get somewhere really quickly.
Yeah.
And we have to get to this moment and get to the bridge and get to the big part and let it billow and, do all this stuff. And I think sometimes we desire to slow it down and like, what does God want to do right now? And we just gave an offering of a song that's precious to us. Like, does he want to respond? And oftentimes he will respond through the music, through the instrumental parts. And we've always loved that. Even the last album we released, The Land I'm Living In, was 2 hours and 15 minutes. I mean, and it's, for most people, it's just like, wow, this is so much music. But it's, for us, it's like the safest, clearest place we live.
Wow.
Is in the waiting. And I think it's just part of how we do love to lead worship is to like get in there and do the big, like, just where you're going for it. And it's so awesome. And it's just like, rah, and then to be able to like billow and then come down and find that patient, still place. And it's a lot of pastoring. I mean, it's not enough to just pastor people into the expression of worship, right? Into the like, raise your hands, like sing with your whole heart, like jump up and down, do all this stuff. Like, it's not enough to lead people into that place. Like, it is as powerful and as impactful to lead people into the stillness of worship.
Yeah.
Do we know how to be still in the presence of God?
That's good.
To not hurry the Lord along. And I think at this school we have the privilege of our worship nights. We don't teach. It's like the whole night
space.
Is just to worship the Lord. And that is a gift. I think we design it that way so that we're not hurried.
Yeah.
And oftentimes we know more, like we might set 5 songs on the set list. We're definitely not doing 5 songs, 5 songs over 2 hours.
But you're still prepared.
Right. Yeah.
That's what I'm hearing.
Totally
There's
prepared.
preparation.
And for some people, it's like 5 songs over 2 hours. Like that's insanity. But for us, it's like, no, like that's the point of these nights. It's not always the point.
Yeah.
But for these nights, the point is to find a patient rhythm.
Yeah. Do you remember how the room felt that night? Even in that space of time before you began to sing, My Jesus Changes Everything. Do you remember what you were feeling then?
I do. I think to back up, so we had our rehearsal that afternoon. Because that room gets reset constantly because it's our only big space we have. And so it's our like classroom most days. But then on Thursdays, we tear it down completely and clear it out so that we can worship there. And then we set up the band in the middle. So we were sound checking and doing all that stuff. And sometimes, not all the time, I really love to just wait on the Lord in rehearsal. When we're in discipleship season, it's quite a lot of hats to shift pretty quickly.
Yeah.
And so you're going from like, a one-on-one to like tweaking the schedule. And then you're having a meeting with the staff, and then you're like straight into leading worship. And it's just a lot of like, you know it. It's a lot of changing roles.
Yeah.
And so sometimes when we're just sound checking, we run a song, we'll just take a minute or two and just kind of like, let's just keep playing. Let's settle our soul. Let's just get our heart, mind, everything like lined up. Like we're running a lot, we're doing a lot.
Yeah.
Before we get into the night where everyone's in the room, let's just take a deep breath. Let's like, are we all okay? Are we here? Like, how does everyone feel? And so we had done that because it was the end of the school, and the end of the school is just busy. We just have a lot of things happening, a lot of different things moving around and schedules and stuff. And so we had that moment, and if I'm honest, I was really tired. The end of the school is very tiring, and then you're like, last worship set, like give it all you got.
Of a 2-month school.
Of a 2-month school. So you've been with these beautiful students for every day for 60 days, and you're like coming to your like one of your final moments with them. So like pressure's on, but also it's not, because it's like family at this point.
Right.
Like, expectations are high for the presence of God, not necessarily for us. But so we ran Beautiful Jesus, which was, honestly, we normally wouldn't even run that song, so we've done it for so long. But we did. We just ran through it, came to the end, and I was feeling really tender.
Yeah.
School's coming to an end. Wow, we've just done another school. The Lord completely blew our minds, as he always does, because he loves healing human hearts.
Come on.
And we were all feeling tender and tired, And so we were just rolling this song and just kind of started playing. Jake started playing this little thing. Just, again, we were just kind of waiting on the Lord very patiently. This was in rehearsal. And he just started playing this. I started immediately crying. And then I started singing that. My Jesus changes everything.
And this is in rehearsal.
This is in rehearsal.
Okay, come on.
And I just started saying, my Jesus changes everything. My Jesus changes everything. And just like, man, the reality of like the love of God for humanity just kind of settled on us. It was a very, very tender moment for us. And because our whole band staffs the schools. So it's not like we're all in it. Like we're coming to the end of this crazy journey we do every year. They're not just
driving in for a moment.
Exactly.
Right.
They're not hired musicians. And so we're all crying and just having this precious Selah moment in the middle of like trying to land the school, get ready for a worship night, and of just the realization of, with like, it isn't our good works. It's like Jesus changes everything. He changes the interior of who we are. He heals brokenness. He restores our minds. Like, he's so committed. And it was just like, whoa, like we just me and Jonathan talk a lot about like when is the wardrobe door going to open, like in Narnia, like, and you never know when it's going to happen. But when it does, you know it, because
Wow.
the posture of your heart, like, immediately goes to the wonder of salvation and the wonder of the work of God. And
Wow.
you know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
when you
Oh,
have
yeah.
those moments where like you turn toward the Lord and you look like your face becomes illuminated with the understanding of who he is. And
Yeah.
that was definitely what
Wow.
happened. And so it was a very precious, sacred, tender moment with our band. And then we were like, oh, that'd be kind of fun to do in the night.
Yeah.
Like if it goes there, Jake, I'll just wait for you. Like if you're feeling it, you could play that again, and maybe we'll sing it again. So the spontaneous moment actually started with our
That's so beautiful.
with our band, and I think I know it was exactly what we needed to just turn a little bit with all the busyness of what was happening,
Yeah.
and to just look at the Lord and like,
Wow.
okay, Lord, like you've done it again. Like, because you just love humans and you're committed. And yeah, it was crazy. So then we got in the night, of course, then all the students are in there and it's like so tender. We got to the end and honestly, they were playing something kind of different. And I was like, okay, maybe we're not going to do it. But it was fine, just waiting on the Lord. And then Jake kicked into it. And I mean, you never know, to be honest, if a spontaneous moment can reemerge. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like, moments are really sacred.
Yeah.
And they're not always like reproducible.
Right,
Like
sure.
you can just replicate it. And I was like, I don't know if I'll remember it, you know? But Jake started playing in and then I was looking around and it just came again. Like we just started singing it and I was like, man, this is it. Like I'm looking around the room and like feeling overwhelmed with just the privilege of walking with like 20 to 33-year-olds and like the honor of being woven into their stories and the trust they give us to speak into their life and that they like come from all over the world and they're just like
nations in the room.
right.
Yeah.
And they're like, help me make it, you know, and like to just get to the end and with my whole heart, like, because I'm pretty sure I sing My Jesus Changes Everything.
Yes.
And so like I felt it for my own life, but then, you know, as songwriters, we give words for someone else to sing, you know? So like the students are singing also My Jesus Changes Everything. And just the like, oh, it's overwhelming to come to that point in the school and just feel Jesus in the room, like, and the Jesus that came for every single story and that he is so committed and he was just so there. And
Wow.
it's honestly one of my favorite moments we've ever been able to like just land
powerful.
a school, like in so much adoration of the person of Jesus. And just so, you know, when you can land something that takes so much energy and you're looking at the Lord and you're still full of, we did it. He did it.
The awe.
And the wonder of it all.
That's
It's
what I'm
just,
hearing.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's really incredible. And so, and then, you know, it started really gentle like it was when we did it in rehearsal. And then, of course, I ripped the mic off and we were just like, yeah, change everything. You know, it's just
Yeah.
like, I mean, that's where you get to when you look at the Lord long enough, you realize that it's not your strength that does anything. It's the partnership. He
Wow.
loves partnering with us. And I think I can look back at the video and I'm watching my staff sing it and I'm like, oh, that's different. Like they're singing it from a completely different place than even the students were singing it.
Totally,
Like
totally.
they're like, we showed up, but Jesus showed up.
Yeah.
And he's the one that like heals and delivers and sets people free. He liberates the human heart. Like we just get to partner with him. And so I think every aspect of every person in the room it's just a really sweet moment.
Yeah.
And I think to come to the end of 16 schools and just not feel jaded and still feel really in love with the Lord and really proud of our team and just so locked in. just was a real reward.
Yeah.
And I can see that even now, like, oh, I'm so glad we have that on video and
Right.
recorded, because those are the moments we look back on and we're like, we've like stayed the narrow path. Like we're still with Jesus. And even though it cost a lot, like we can still find vibrancy in our friendship with him.
Come on.
And in the work of walking with God,
Yeah.
So special.
Yeah, that's really beautiful.
Yeah.
I think one thing that's so beautiful is even hearing you reflect on how sacred that moment was in a moment in time. It's like you're reflecting back on 16 plus years of leading these schools with Jonathan and the team, what God has done across that time. You're reflecting on 2 months of what you've seen happen in the lives of these men and women, and they're from all these different nations.
Yeah.
And then this moment happens to go on YouTube, and there's this opportunity to open the windows.
Yeah.
And now other nations are coming and looking through the windows, and now they're a part of the moment.
Yeah.
Like even just reading through some of the comments and just hearing people say, I want to share my testimony.
Yeah.
I want to just say how I feel met by Jesus right now. How does it feel to open up, to go from like leading that moment in time and knowing there's only this many people in the room. There's 60, 70, however many, 90 people in the room tops.
Yeah.
How does it feel to go from that to then knowing that this moment is out there for anyone to open up and join into that moment?
Yeah.
How does that feel for you as a leader?
That's a good question. I think it can feel really vulnerable.
Yeah.
And I think a question I ask myself a lot is how much of my vulnerability can I release to the whole world,
Yeah.
and how much of like those moments that actually are really sacred in the school setting can I give? And so that's a question I ask a lot, because I do, me alongside with all of the staff, give something very deep to that school setting, and so
And it comes through.
It does.
Yeah.
And it's very specific to those students and that moment. And so I think I do have a gauge that I really think about. And I think it's wisdom, because there's a lot of moments that we've recorded and videoed that I look back and I know that moment was really just for that moment. And,
Wow.
And it's important that I'm able to make that distinguishing, like, that I can distinguish, like, oh, that was so beautiful. That was very specific to that moment, and that's okay.
Yeah.
Like, I don't have to give every part of myself away, because I am a more vulnerable worship leader. Like, I give my story, my testimony, my heart out, and I give my tears a lot, and I love that. I love that part of myself, and I also I think about it a lot, because once it's out there, it's really out there, And I think so. I love it. When I watch this moment specifically back, I'm like, this song is so special to me. I don't really even have a recording of it, a video, in the context of our community and school out there. And it just felt like, oh, this is a really beautiful gift. Like, this song means a lot to me.
Yeah.
And that moment feels so true to every human experience. And I think in a moment in time where we're doing a lot of criticism and there's a lot of sadness, there's a lot of sorrow, there's a lot of critique of the church and history with God, and there's just a lot happening. And I think to be able to sing out, with full confidence that my Jesus changes everything, to declare something so simple, I think it is an amazing moment when we come back to the simplicity of who Jesus is and the simplicity of the gospel, and we can lock into a melody and sing it over and over, and the repetition builds the anticipation of truth. Like, this is true. Like, the Lord changes everything. He is the one that
Come on.
that sets us free. Like, it is
Yeah.
the gospel message. And so I think it feels beautiful to give like a moment that felt so special, but felt so true to the human experience.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
That resonates.
To give it away and to
Yeah.
let people, I just think about, this is what I love about YouTube. It's just like people could be watching in their homes. It could be on while they're at work. It could, be playing in the background when they're hanging out with people. Like, it's just, and so all of a sudden you're like in people's really sacred spaces. And
Wow.
like, it's so intimate actually. And I think to be able to offer something that feels very true
Yeah.
to my love for the Lord. And just, I just love that Jonathan and I and all of us have the privilege of giving moments away
Yeah.
that can just live there and find their way to the moms and dads and daughters and sisters and sons and uncles. And it's like every part of life, like
Yeah.
they just find their way on YouTube to these amazing moments. We're living in a profound moment where we can sing something in Sophia, North Carolina, and someone on the other side of the world can click on it and and feel the same wonder
And the closeness.
and the closeness of
profound.
Jesus. I just love
Yeah.
it. So this is a sweet moment to give away. And I feel really happy and joyful in the way that people are receiving it. And again, like, I'm 44 years old. Like, I've been singing the song a really long time. So to return to it and it feels so deep and wide, and I feel like, wow, I believe this so much. Like, I believe it more than I've ever believed it before. And even that in itself just feels like, this is good. Like,
That's right.
I'm still in love with Jesus. And he's still filling up the empty spaces, and
Yeah.
the Holy Spirit is covering me in light, and it's all just so true. And I'm going to probably be singing it for a very long time, for the rest of my life,
on.
as long as I have a voice, that he's the one that stays till the very end.
on.
Like, I'm grateful to have written a song that I still believe in.
It's a beautiful song.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you for sharing this moment with us.
Yeah.